I'm joined now by Leslie Maasdorp, Chief Executive of British International Investment, and Jesper Brodin, Chair of the B Team, non-profit collective of global business leaders focused on climate action, former CEO of Ingka Group, IKEA, IKEA Chair, and of course, Chair of the Earthshot Prize and board member of Green Investment Forum, Angelina. You got a lot. You're wearing a lot of hats now, Jesper. I've got to say, that's quite a mouthful there. All right. The first thing I want to do is get your comments on what we heard Prince William say just then. Yes, he's asking business to be bold as they can be, as they wanted to be when they were growing up. The thing that really struck me was this comment of doing it for the greater good. And I know that's slightly controversial, that sort of language, because, you know, it's the greater good versus the shareholder value argument, isn't it? Should he be saying things like that?
Absolutely. Look, what Prince William said there really provides the fact the message comes from an enduring anchor foundational institution like the royal family. It really provides the strategic backdrop against which BII functions. That message, obviously combined with a very strong commitment of the British government to climate, provides us the ability to raise our ambition on climate. We have last year committed more than $1 billion in climate finance. And we're now creating new vehicles to give expression to that aspiration that Prince William just outlined.
What do you think, Jesper? I mean, look, I don't want to be the skeptic here or the cynic, but I'm sure it raised eyebrows talking about the greater good. But the general message, though, Jesper, that corporates need to be bolder and take more risks is one that you've pushed for a while now.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think it is. I love the question because it puts at the center what a lot of people, I think, out there might be thinking. But actually, with the data at hand today, we know that there is great awareness. In the corporate leaders, thousands of leaders in the risk report in World Economic Forum claims that the top 4 risks in the world are connected to environment. When it comes to commitment, 97% of all the CEOs in United Nations Global Compact are deeply committed to sustainability. And on top of that, which is a recent, I think, important data point, there is great business success today. Yeah. So the notion that we would have to choose between what's ethical, right, and what's good for business is no longer true. And that goes for if you're interested as well. Of course, there are a few businesses that still look for something to scale or an innovation that helps them. But the majority of businesses out there are doing quite well, actually.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the WEF, and you reformed the CEO Climate Leaders Alliance because you said, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said it lacked the rigor and accountability it really needed. I mean, since then, we have had some rowing back. What's your overall...
Have we?
I think we have, haven't we?
Well, interesting, I would argue...
corporates have been given an excuse.
The interesting thing, I would say, in most businesses, politics have been wary, but I think industrialists are builders. So basically what you saw going back 7 years to the reference of the World Economic Forum's Climate Alliance, we started by committing to Paris. We got our targets, we got our measurements, and we started working. And as you build, you don't unbuild. So we are engineers and we are builders. And the progress that we've seen the last 3-4 years is just stunning, which means, for instance, that the World Economic Forum's Climate Alliance, you know, it's actually from a carbon responsibility, it's larger than the 3rd biggest country in the world, so it's huge.
Yeah.
They are actually successful in business revenue, up 20% last 3 years, and down 12% in absolute carbon, scope 1, 2, and 3. So the proof is actually there. It actually is smart business to be a good business.
Yeah. I'll come back to that in a second, because and I want to look at when you were CEO of Ingka, how the revenue grew and what you were doing on the green side. Very quickly, Leslie, though. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the BCP, the British Climate Partners Initiative, and what opportunities you're seeking to unlock with that, if it's about decommissioning coal or if it's actually about putting money into new technologies and new areas.
Thank you. So BII for years now have been increasing its ambition on climate. We're now entering a new phase. It's in fact an inflection point in development finance where we're no longer doing individual projects. We're no longer just financing companies. We want to create platforms. And in addition, we want to de-risk. We want to be able to take on that early risk so that we can crowd in your big commercial investors. BCP is an expression of that intent. So we've done our first deal, for example, where we've, together with Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, we've created a $300 million energy transition platform. Essentially, we're taking the early risk Axel, once a project generates power, for example, I was in Egypt 2 weeks ago and I visited the wind farm. It's still under construction, 1.1 gigawatts. Once that project starts to generate power, it has predictable cash flows. It is very easy then for us to crowd in and mobilize commercial players. We want to do this at scale. So BCP is about that intent.
I mean, the headline sounds impressive. I believe I'm right in saying the strategy promises to direct about 25% of investments to developing countries. You know, something we talked a lot about yesterday, we'll continue to talk about, is the fact that this money isn't going to a lot of those sorts of projects in those economies, that it's going to the big, bankable, scalable projects. Is that fair to say?
Well, all of our capital is deployed in developing countries. The 25% reference you made is to the least developed countries, the frontier markets, where capital is really scarce. These are more riskier environments. So we are committed to enter those environments to play this sort of market building, market shaping role. So these are countries where your traditional investors cannot enter because those markets are not investment grade, those markets don't meet the sort of traditional fiduciary standards of those commercial players. So what we want to do is, we enter first to de-risk those markets.
Okay. Yes, but let's come back to that vigor that you have had for so many years in this space. 8 years at CEO of Ingka, revenue was up, 25%, emissions down about 30%. There were fantastic headline numbers. Not publicly listed, though. A lot of these companies in hard-to-abate sectors are publicly listed. How realistic is it to expect that to happen at a lot of these other publicly listed companies?
Well, I think if it would be a story of sacrifice or such, which it isn't, that would be a relevant question. But here it is, the proof, which is recent, is that it's not only possible to decarbonize, but it's actually supporting the business success. Interesting enough, Axel, what we didn't know was that except for the brand and except for being, of course, on the good side of human history, we have had massive reductions of cost. If you look at the energy sector, where IKEA, during the time I was part of it, invested up to 4.5 billion euro in renewable energy, which gave a new revenue stream, by the way. It was a sort of additional bonus. It took down the cost of energy massively across all boundaries. And on top of that, obviously, gave us independence. And in a world that is so uncertain as we know it to be today, all of these things, of course, give you business benefits. Hence, there is no reason why you wouldn't pursue that, whatever type of construct you are.
I started, just to finish up with, I started by referencing all the hats you now wear. On the governance side, the Earthshot chair as well, which is linked to Prince William, clearly. Are you in a position, do you think, to get more done now than you were in your previous role?
Well, I met a colleague the other day. He said, "Do you miss us?" And I said, "I miss my secretary massively." But yes, I'm getting a lot of things done. And I feel the contributions to other organizations gives me a lot of pleasure, since IKEA is moving and the plans, in spite of respect for the future challenges, IKEA is one of, I think, the trailblazers showing it's actually good business. So what I aim to do is to see if I can contribute to others to follow suit.